Okay, so today we're going to dive deep into high finance.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. We're looking at tax strategies and how the super wealthy, hold on to so much of their money.
Right.
You guys sent in some amazing stuff for this deep dive. We have 5 sources,
Hmm.
articles, videos. We even got like an advertorial in here somewhere.
Cool.
Yeah, so it looks like today we're tackling this buy, borrow, die strategy. Have you heard of this before?
Oh, yeah. Buy, borrow, die. It's definitely making the rounds.
Yeah. So is it like a sneaky loophole? Is it some elaborate scheme?
Hmm.
Or is it just, smart planning?
Hmm.
And like the bigger question here is, are there any pieces of this that we can actually use, even if we're not, planning to buy a yacht anytime soon?
Well, to really understand buy, borrow, die, you have to understand how wealth is taxed. Or really how wealth is not taxed.
Oh,
It
sure.
all comes down to something called unrealized capital gains.
Unrealized capital gains.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that rings a bell. It's like that $8.5 trillion figure, right?
Hmm.
From the video with Sherman, the CPA coach.
That's the one. It's basically the profit you'd make if you sold your assets today. But here's the kicker. As long as you don't sell those assets, those gains aren't taxed as income.
Interesting.
That's the bedrock of the buy, borrow, die strategy.
So then you basically just never sell anything.
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that, but you're on the right track.
Okay, so let's break down this buy, borrow, die thing step by step.
Okay.
First, you buy assets, things that appreciate in value over time.
Right.
Stocks, real estate businesses.
Right.
We saw one article that even mentioned fine wine and art as options.
Some smart asset.
Yeah, smart asset. They some good points.
Definitely. You can think of these assets as like building your financial fortress. They're the foundation.
Okay, so we've built our fortress. What's next?
Next comes the borrow part.
Okay.
And this is where things get kind of interesting. Instead of selling those assets and getting hit with a big capital gains tax bill,
Mm-hmm.
you borrow against them.
Interesting. So it's like taking out a loan, but instead of your house being the collateral, it's your stock portfolio or your real estate holdings.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like accessing a line of credit secured by your assets.
And that way you get to use your wealth to like get more cash without actually selling anything.
Precisely.
That's pretty clever.
It's a strategy that's becoming increasingly popular, especially among high net worth individuals.
Mm.
Even big financial institutions like Morgan Stanley and Bank of America are getting in on the action.
We saw that in the Equifend article, right?
Yeah, they highlighted how these institutions are offering more and more loans specifically designed for this purpose.
Okay, so we've bought assets, we're borrowing against them, and then where does the die part come in?
Well, the die part focuses on passing those assets on to your heirs, and ideally doing so with a minimal tax burden for them.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see where this is going.
Yeah.
So that's where the step up in basis comes into play,
You
right?
got it. When you pass away, the value of those assets is stepped up to their current market value. So your heirs essentially get a fresh start.
Wow, so you're saying that they don't have to pay capital gains taxes on all the appreciation that happened while you owned the assets.
Exactly. It's like the government is saying, hey, we're giving you a clean slate. Forget about what your parents or grandparents paid for those assets. We're starting from scratch with the current market value.
That's a pretty sweet deal for the heirs.
It is. It's one of the key advantages of this whole buy, borrow, die approach.
Okay, so we got the buy, borrow, die breakdown. But it seems like this isn't just about avoiding taxes, right?
You're absolutely right. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, it feels like it's about building wealth in a much bigger way.
It is. It's about using debt strategically to amplify your wealth building potential.
Like that snowball effect we hear about.
Exactly. You borrow against one asset to invest in another, and both have the potential to appreciate in value over time.
Sharon Winsmith called this the double dip approach.
I like that. It's a great way to visualize it.
Yeah, you're making your money work overtime.
And it's not just about growth either. It's about diversification, spreading your risk across multiple asset classes.
So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And there can even be some asset protection benefits as well, depending on how you structure things.
Okay, so now things are getting really interesting. Because it sounds like this isn't just a game for billionaires.
Not necessarily. Sharon Winsmith made a really good point in her video. You don't have to be Elon Musk to apply some of these principles.
So even us regular folks can get in on the action.
Absolutely. It's all about shifting your mindset and seeing the bigger picture.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we start thinking like the buy, borrow, die crowd?
Well, it starts with recognizing that there might be ways to leverage debt strategically to create opportunities and build wealth.
Even on a smaller scale.
Exactly. It could be as simple as using a second mortgage to fund a rental property.
Like Mandel and Foos talked about.
Exactly. Or maybe you borrow against your investment portfolio to launch a side hustle or start that business you've always dreamed of.
So it's all about making informed, calculated decisions.
Precisely.
And maybe, just maybe, learning a thing or two from the billionaires.
You never know where inspiration might strike.
That's right. So we've covered the basics of buy, borrow, die,
We've laid the groundwork.
and it sounds like there's a lot more to unpack here. So buckle up, because we're just getting started.
This is going to be good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
Okay, so we're starting to see how this buy, borrow, die thing works, but there's one thing that keeps coming up:
What's that?
cash value life insurance.
Yeah, that's a big one. It seems like everyone's talking about cash value life insurance these days, especially in the context of buy, borrow, die.
It was all over the sources we looked at. It sounds like it was practically made for this strategy.
Well, it does have some features that make it very appealing for this kind of approach.
Like what?
Well, for starters, the cash value inside a life insurance policy grows tax-free.
Wait, really? Tax-free, so you don't have to pay taxes on the gains every year?
Nope. The taxes are deferred until you withdraw the money or surrender the policy.
So it's like a secret savings account that the IRS doesn't even know about.
Kind of. It's a great way to build wealth under the radar.
Okay, I am intrigued.
Okay.
What else is there?
Another big perk is the potential for really low loan rates.
Loan rates. How does that work?
You can actually borrow against your life insurance policy.
Really?
Yep. And the rates are often locked in for the life of the policy.
Locked in, so they can't go up even if interest rates skyrocket.
Exactly.
That's incredible. What kind of rates are we talking about here?
Well, Mandel and Foos mentioned a policy with a guaranteed loan rate of 0.25%.
0.25%.
Are you serious? That's practically free money.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
And that can make a huge difference when it comes to leveraging your wealth and making smart investments.
Wow, this is blowing my mind. Okay, so we've got tax-free growth, ridiculously low loan rates. What else?
Well, there's the death benefit, of course. That's the whole point of life insurance, right? To protect your loved ones if something happens to you.
Right.
But here's where it gets interesting. That death benefit can actually be used to repay the loan you took out against the policy.
So even if you don't repay the loan during your lifetime, it's all taken care of after you're gone.
Exactly. It's like a built-in safety net. I'm starting to see why everyone's so excited about cash value life insurance. It seems almost too good to be true.
Well, it's important to remember that it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Oh, okay.
It's a long-term strategy. It takes time for that cash value to build up and for the tax benefits to really kick in.
So patience is key.
Definitely. And it's also crucial to choose the right type of policy.
There are different types.
Oh, yeah. There are a bunch of different kinds of cash value life insurance, each with its own set of features and benefits.
So you really need to do your research and figure out which one aligns with your goals.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's where working with a knowledgeable financial advisor can be really helpful. They can guide you through the options and make sure you're making the best decision for your situation.
Right, because this is definitely not something you want to just wing it on.
I wouldn't recommend it.
So we've talked about the buy part, the borrow part, the die part, and now this whole cash value life insurance thing. I feel like I'm finally starting to grasp the mechanics of this buy, borrow, die strategy.
You're getting there. But remember, there's more to it than just the mechanics.
What do you mean?
Well, we've talked about how the strategies, the tools, the tactics. We haven't really touched on the why.
The why?
Yeah, the underlying principles, the big picture thinking behind this whole approach to wealth building.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Let's dive into that.
Yeah.
All right, so bring on the why. What's the big idea behind this whole buy, borrow, die thing?
Okay, so at its core, buy, borrow, die, it's really about leveraging time.
Time.
Yeah. Like recognizing that wealth building, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay, so it's about thinking long-term, not looking for those quick wins, but setting yourself up for success down the road.
Exactly. And it's also about understanding that different asset classes, they work on different timelines.
How so?
Well, like real estate might appreciate steadily over time,
Right.
but a startup, that could explode in value in just a few years, or it could totally tank.
So it's about diversifying your portfolio.
That's part of it, yeah.
Right.
Spreading your risk, giving yourself multiple chances to win over time.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And buy, borrow, die, it also pushes you to think beyond just holding on to assets.
Okay.
It's about using those assets to create more opportunities.
Like we talked about with the double dip approach, right?
Yeah, borrowing against one asset to invest in another, creating that snowball effect.
Making your money work for you.
Exactly. And this is where debt comes in.
Debt? I thought we were trying to avoid debt.
Well, debt can be a bad thing if it's not managed properly. But buy, borrow, die is all about using debt strategically.
Okay.
It's like how businesses use debt all the time to expand and invest.
Right.
Individuals can do the same thing, just on a smaller scale. Obviously, you have to be smart about it and have a plan for repayment.
So it's about shifting our perspective on debt. Not seeing it as something to be afraid of, but as a tool that can actually help us build wealth.
That's the idea. It's
Yeah.
all about understanding the rules of the game and playing it strategically.
And it's not just about building wealth for yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
It's also about planning for the future, for your family.
Absolutely. It's about creating a legacy.
That generational wealth aspect, that's something that really stood out to me as we were going through these sources.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. It's not just about you. It's about setting up your kids and grandkids for success.
Okay, so we've talked about the how and the why of buy, borrow, die, but is this really something that anyone can do? Or is it just for the super rich?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think the principles of buy, borrow, die, they can be applied at any level of wealth.
Really? So
Yeah.
even if I'm not, a millionaire, I can still benefit from this approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Remember those examples we talked about earlier? Using a second mortgage to buy a rental property or borrowing against your investments to start a business?
Right?
Those are real-world applications of buy, borrow, die that are accessible to pretty much anyone.
So it's about thinking creatively and finding ways to leverage what you already have.
Exactly. And it's about making informed decisions that align with your long-term goals.
It sounds like buy, borrow, die is more of a mindset than a specific set of rules.
That's a good way to put it. It's about being proactive, strategic, and informed. It's about taking control of your financial future.
I like that. So to sum it all up, buy, borrow, die, it's not some secret formula for the elite. It's a framework for thinking about wealth building that anyone can use.
Exactly. And it's about using all the tools at your disposal, whether that's a mortgage, a business loan, or even cash value life insurance.
Right. It's about playing the long game and making your money work as hard for you as you work for it.
Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So there you have it, folks. Buy, borrow, die. It's a fascinating approach to wealth building, and hopefully you've learned a thing or two today that you can apply to your own financial journey. Until next time, happy diving.